So again, thank you guys for being here. My name is Heather. I've worked for Whole Earth for 7 years doing a number of things, mostly in shoes, and now I'm on the social media team. And it's super fun. I love working here, and it's a great company to work for. And today we are going to be talking about what to pack for a day hike. If you've been following along to our mini clinic series, we've had some information about hiking shoes, hiking socks, hiking clothing, layering, and types of insulation for being active outdoors. So if you followed along with all of that and you're getting ready for a day hike, you're gearing up, all those things are some really good basics. And now we're going to get into some of the gear that you guys might need. And today we're specifically going to be talking about mostly like the 10 essentials of hiking. You don't necessarily need all of these for every hike, especially if you're just going to be at your local city park and you're not far from civilization. But if you are planning on getting out there in the backcountry or an extended national park trip, or even just at a state park and you're doing a shorter day hike, some of these things are helpful in case of an emergency. But dial this kit depending on what your trip is like and how far you're going, and all those things will really help figure out exactly what you need. But here's a good base to start out. So one of the first things that you are going to look at is purchasing a backpack. For day hiking, I like to stay between 15 and 25 liters, and most packs will tell you the size of the pack, and that's about a good amount of space to house all this kind of stuff. You can obviously go with something much smaller if you're not going for very long, or you can get a bigger pack if you want to pack some more stuff, maybe some more substantial food, or you're bringing along camera equipment if you're filming and stuff like that. So picking the size of your pack is helpful, and figuring out the stuff that's going to go in it is helpful. I like to figure out what I'm going to bring on a trip and then figure out the size of the pack that I need so that I don't get something too big or too small for all the stuff that I want to carry. So pack size is important, and getting something with the right features for you is helpful. I am a fan of getting packs that have hip belts, and a lot of these will have zippers on them so you can even put some stuff in there like your snacks or your phone. And getting something with some good padding on the straps and on the back panel is really important. Now, when you're day hiking and you're not carrying a lot of weight, you can go with something a little bit more flimsy like this and not something that's very structured, because you're not needing to support a lot of weight. But if you are going to be carrying some heavier items with you, getting something with a bit more padding and a bit more structure to carry that weight better is going to be really helpful. And especially if you're going to be carrying weight, you want to pack with those hip belts to distribute the weight evenly across your hips and not so much on your shoulders. That way you don't have as much strain on your body when you're done hiking. So you figured out where to go, and maybe you've done your research and you know what your trail is going to be. The next main essential that you want to look at is going to be navigation. So unless I'm going to just my city park across the street from my neighborhood, I'll be bringing a map and a compass. So if I'm going to a state park, and they usually have maps there to use for free, but national parks you'll probably have to buy your own map, or if you're going somewhere backcountry, you'll need to purchase your own map. You can also rely on your phone. There's apps that have trail maps and navigation, but if you're worried about your cell service or your battery dying, then a good old-fashioned map and compass are really key. And also just making sure that you know how to use those things before you take them out and get out there. You don't want to get lost and not know how to use a map or a compass. So learning those things would be really helpful. If you are going to be taking some stuff that rely on batteries, then a good battery pack to charge that stuff if you're worried about it dying is helpful. This one's a little bigger than you would need, but battery pack might not be a bad idea. Next is going to be food. I like just bringing little trail mix or power bars, but something to remember is that you might want to bring a little extra food than you're anticipating, especially if you end up being out there longer than you anticipated. Having a backup food is really helpful, but for day hikes you probably just need some trail mix and some bars. You can even get like some nut butter. Those are all really good options. Next is going to be water. You want to make sure that you are bringing along about a half a liter to a liter for every hour that you're out hiking, because you're just going to be using a lot of energy and you want to stay hydrated. And definitely drink water before you go out so that you don't feel parched when you're hiking and get dehydrated. You can use water bottles. I always am a fan of water bottles because I can actually see how much I'm drinking. But you can also go with like a water bladder, which sits on the inside of your pack, and it has a hose that comes out of the top, and you can put it on your chest strap, and that will be a great way to drink water without having to like reach back behind you to get a water bottle, or to ask your friend to get your water bottle for you, or to even take off your pack. But there's pros and cons to each one. The water bladder is also a little bit more comfortable to carry because the weight is situated directly against your back. So I do go with that for longer hikes, but for short things I just bring a nice little Nalgene water bottle. And again, as a backup, if you end up being out on your trip longer than you expect, or if you don't want to maybe carry all the weight that water comes along with, you could bring a trusty water filter. And if you have water on your trail or wherever you're hiking, you can filter some water really quickly, pour this into your bladder or your water bottle, and then you're good to go. So that's a really good thing to have. I also really like bringing these Nuun tablets to put in my water bottles. These are electrolyte replacements, and they're excellent. You get a whole bunch in a tube and just throw them in your Nalgene, you're good to go. Next is going to be first aid. So depending on the size of your group and how long your day hike really is, and what the terrain is like, you might just need a really small first aid kit, just something like this. This is from Adventure Medical Kits, and this is just a 1 day for 1 to 2 people kind of small thing. But even these you can break down and just take just some bandages and some blister kit. I always bring a blister kit with me when I'm hiking, and I even pack some blister tape and some alcohol swabs and some extra toilet paper. Those are always good things to keep in your little first aid kit. Just be sure that if you are using these, that any medication that you bring that's inside of these is still in working order. The expiration dates can pass on these if you're not careful. Maybe you just keep this in your car year round. If you use any of that stuff, you want to make sure that you replenish it before your next trip so that you're not out there with some expired medication. So next is going to be sun protection. This is super, super important, even if you're only out there for a couple hours. A good pair of sunglasses is always, always helpful. And a trusty hat. I always bring this outdoor research hat, and I have another one that's like a wide brim. Those are perfect for keeping yourself out of the elements. Some good quality sunscreen is really helpful too. I have a body and a face sunscreen from ThinkSport. This is super awesome mineral sunscreen that we sell that's really, really comfortable on the skin and doesn't really leave a greasy residue. Chapstick is also really helpful. This will help keep your lips moist, and you can even get chapstick with SPF in it, and that's really, really helpful, especially if you're feeling dehydrated or in the colder seasons like now. If you're out there for a few hours, you might need some chapstick. I also really like bringing a buff, and this just goes around your neck. You can also just hold it around your wrist, and you can get this wet and put it around your neck, and it'll help cool you down in the summer months, or use it in the winter as basically a scarf, and it keeps you nice and warm. So that's also helpful, not just for sun protection, but for warmth. And I really like hiking in like long pants and long sleeve shirts, But if that's not your thing, or you're going for shorter times but you don't want to maybe wear as much sunscreen, I also really like these Outdoor Research sun sleeves. And these are great if you want to wear some short sleeve shirts, still get some nice breeze, but want to protect your arms. These are super, super handy. I love those a lot. And extra clothing is going to be the next piece. So whether that's just an extra pair of socks, or maybe, you know, it's cold out and it's time to bring some gloves. Having these are really, really helpful, especially if you end up staying out later than you thought and it gets really cold. Shannon also did a great webinar on clothing, on insulation. So, you know, depending on the time of year and the season you're in, having a nice puffy is going to come in handy. And I always pack one of those if it's between basically November and March here in Texas. And some rain protection. Rain gear is helpful too. So a nice rain jacket is pretty much all you need. You don't always need rain pants. But if you're going somewhere and it's going to be extremely rainy, then you might want some rain pants. But I'm also a fan of just bringing along an extra little poncho. And these are great emergency shelters or emergency rain gear when you might need that. Which pulls us into the next essential, which is shelter. If you're going for a day hike, it's not really something you need, but if you're preparing for a potential situation, things like that poncho, your rain gear, or even a ultralight bivy or Mylar blanket like this can be a great little substitute in a pinch. So luckily those options are pretty lightweight and thin, so it's not really going to add a whole lot of weight to your pack versus bringing along like a tent. That's a little overkill. You would not really need that at all unless you're planning on staying out overnight somewhere and you're camping in addition to your day hikes. So your next big thing is going to be illumination. Again, this is mostly for if you happen to get stuck out after the sun goes down, or maybe you're starting your day hike really early before the sun gets up. A good headlamp is going to come in handy. You can also rely on your phone. A lot of phones these days have a flashlight feature, but again, if you're worried about your battery life, a headlamp comes in handy, and you might not need extra batteries since it's just for the day. But a lot of times you can get stuck out on a trail. It takes you longer to hike than you thought, and you're hiking in the dark. These really, really, really come in handy. So I always bring one. I always have one in my car, in my day pack, in my camping kit, all that stuff. Another emergency item that you might need is going to be a fire kit. I always bring just a little kit that has a lighter, waterproof matches, and some cotton balls soaked in petroleum jelly. You never know if you might need that, so I always bring that little kit just as an emergency. And same for a cutting tool. I sometimes will bring a knife with me, and it's not really for protection, it's more to help with an emergency situation. If, say, I need to fix something on some gear that I have, a multi-tool also can come in handy for that. And maybe for like getting some tinder from sticks and stuff, if, say, I needed to build a fire for an emergency situation. But you shouldn't let those things stop you from hiking. Just really, it's all about planning ahead of time and making sure that you have all the prepared gear and skills to help you be successful on your day hike. So again, take some of this with a grain of salt. If you're just going to your local place and there's a lot of people around, you're probably going to be really fine and not need some of this stuff. So it just kind of depends on your trip and what you want to prepare for. And kind of the last 11th essential is really about that planning. So something you definitely want to make sure you do every time you go out, even if it is somewhere close and local, is let someone know about your itinerary. Tell someone at home where you're going to be, roughly how long you'll be there, and when they can expect you back, so that if there is an emergency situation, somebody knows your whereabouts. I'm also a fan of writing that stuff down and putting it in your car at the trailhead. So, sorry, everything's tucked in here. So I always like to bring a little journal and a pencil and leave a note in my car where I'm headed, just on the off chance that you get stuck somewhere. Hopefully not. And some extras that you might want to bring along for your own comfort is I really like hiking with trekking poles, and this is a collapsible one that tucks down really tight, but you can just snap it together. There we go. And this is super helpful for hiking. It saves my knees going downhill, and it's really, really helpful for being stable on trails that are really rocky, or maybe you're doing like a river crossing. I really like these. Ever since I hiked with them, I'll never go back. They're super, super helpful. The next thing that you might need or want is a waterproof stuff sack to put some of these things in, like your waterproof matches, or your first aid kit, or your toilet paper. Anything that you don't want to get wet in case you get caught in some rain that would live in your backpack. But you can also get like a pack cover. That it's just basically a rain jacket for your backpack that can pack down pretty small, and you can cover everything in there and keep it all pretty protected from the rain if you get caught in some rainstorm. And sometimes those ponchos are big enough to go over you and the backpack. So that's really helpful. Also, if you're going to be taking some breaks, a sit pad is really helpful. We have some from Thermarest. This is a different one, but these weigh like an ounce or two, and you can just sit on these when you're out on your break on the trail and keep your butt happy. If you don't want to use stuff sacks, there are other containers and sacks to put, some of your small items in. I like to use this little Patagonia black hole toiletry bag. This one's great. It's really durable. It's got a pocket inside of it, and I can put my sunscreen, my bug spray, my sunglasses, my buff, my knife, my headlamp, first aid kit. Almost everything in here can go in just this, and then I have more room in my pack to put my two pieces of outerwear. So that is about it for the 10 essentials that you would need for your day hike. And I think we're gonna stop the recording here in a second, and we'll get to some Q&A.